Hey everybody, Ian from Novel Music here, and I'm here to introduce to you Seeds 1.5, which features several bug fixes and improvements to the entire collection. Start with Chronology. What's new here is we have triplet divisions on the clock, so not only 16th notes as a main clock that we divide from, for instance, but we could have 8th note triplets, 16th triplets, and so on. In addition, you'll see this new feature down here, the lock, which is of course something that most of our devices have. I've decided to include it now in Chronology. The main thing that this will affect is the trigger parameter. So if we set this up, let's do maybe 54% of the time, we'll get a trigger. If I lock this, you'll notice even though they're all running at their own rate, the positive triggers remain the same through each repetition. Now, if we really want to hear this in action, we should use the reset parameter, which has been improved across all the devices in Seeds 1.5. So let's do reset at every 4 beats. And now you can hear that repetition because all 4 clocks are being snapped to the start position at the reset. And another new feature is an improved swing algorithm, which besides going to 0 to 100%, we also can go negative direction, which inverts the swing behavior. One of the major improvements of Seeds 1.5 is a completely overhauled hub system, and that's the way we send and receive MIDI throughout the live sets between different Seeds devices. So it's important to note that this new system is not compatible with previous versions of Seeds. So don't mix and match, just delete any previous version you have and use only 1.5. Now, the previous way that we could send multiple tracks of MIDI to one hub device would be to use 2 separate ports, as I have set up here. I've got 2 arpeggiations going, one at a 16th note, one at an 8th note, sending on A and B, being received here, A and B. But with the new system, I can actually just use A or B only. So let's set that up so we're only sending on A, and then we only receive on A, and we should get the same effect. So this opens up a lot of possibilities in general. One idea that I could think of right off the bat is creating more complex types of clock pulses that could be summed to one hub output and used to drive our sequencers, for instance. Polymath and Model see some really nice updates in version 1.5. I won't go through them all, but just the major new components would be, of course, first, this new position parameter. Sometimes when you're working with a sequence, you listen to it over and over, you realize the start of the phrase may not actually be on the first step. So in this case, maybe I would like the phrase to start here. So that's what the position parameter does. It defines the starting point of the sequence. In addition, a new playback option is available, and that holds on the current step indefinitely, which allows us to manually then change which step is being played through the position parameter. So this adds a new layer of performability with Polymath and Model. You could also, of course, use one of Ableton's LFO devices or any modulation device of your choosing to manipulate this parameter without having to use the mouse. We also now have, for duration, the duration lane, the highest setting is now called hold. And what that will do is hold the note indefinitely until a new note is sounded. So let's use a simple example. I'll clear this. Let's set this first step to be hold. And let's start it on step 1. So this could be very useful for a monophonic bass line, for instance, where you want all of the notes to be held as long as possible until a new note is sounded. The last thing I'll highlight here with changes to Polymath and Model is the deviations now have not only our traditional less than or equal to setting, but like deviate, we now can do equal to. So we're going to do some octave deviations here. And let's lock this. Well, let's say what I really want is it always to be 2 octaves higher, the deviation, and I want it to be, let's say, in the positive direction. Now you hear it's always 2 octaves because it's set to equals, and if I set deviation up to 100%, effectively I've just shifted the whole thing up 2 octaves. Lastly, I'd like to give you a quick overview of what's new in Suite 16. This parameter is also new on Relay, and that's the auto pattern length button. So in the fixed mode, we now can have individual settings for the repeat value for each port. Which adds obviously a lot more flexibility from what we had before. And if I want to actually introduce some different triggers and lock that, the problem is it doesn't line up because right now I've got the memory set to 8 hits. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'd have to manually change this to 7 in order to get it to line up. However, I also could hit this new button, Auto Pattern Length. So that automatically sums the number of repeats together, it figures out, and assigns that to the memory lane. And now you hear it's always repeating because it's locked. Let's increase the triggers. Yes, and so this makes this even more musical, more fun to play around with, and to create interesting rhythms, not only to drive drum machines like the 808 in this case, but to drive our sequencers Polymath and Model. And that's it for an overview of Seeds 1.5. I'm really excited to get this update out to everybody, and I hope you will enjoy using this in your own music making. Thanks for watching.